Hello, Rachel. Hi, Ragul. Welcome. Can you hear me? Let me bring this over. Chat. Hi, Rachel. Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at where we've been and where we're going. Okay. All right. Let's see. We are wrapping up the 4th week of the semester, where we just started taking a look at JavaScript, and we briefly introduced jQuery. And we took a look at a couple of examples on how the language works. We took a look at declaring different variables, functions. We played around with all sorts of loops, right? The simple for loops plus all the different iterators such as .map, .filter, .find, um, that operate on arrays and either transform them or retrieve data from them. And so it's the beginning of using JavaScript for what it's most known for, the interacting with a browser, being able to manipulate the browser, control the browser, program the browser as a user interface. We also took a look at how to generate new content using the document global object, right? That you can write content to the DOM, right? And we saw several techniques on how to break up content into smaller pieces, different functions that could then be combined to build larger screens, right? So today we're going to keep doing some of that. We'll also introduce jQuery. jQuery is a very popular JavaScript library that abstracts the browser, right? Creates a thin layer of abstraction on top of the browser so that developers don't need to take care about the specific version of the browser, the specific vendor. jQuery can figure that out for us, right? And then do the right thing, right? If we just tell it what we want it to do, jQuery will then translate that into low-level browser commands, right? That will accomplish the desired outcome. Okay. We did also introduce the next assignment, A5, which is not due for another week, next week. That basically will give you a chance to practice all these skills, right? Of declaring variables, creating functions, using jQuery, and then applying them to build a or apply that to the Twitter application that we've been working on throughout the semester. Okay. Let's see. Also, Q2 should be now available. I believe it closes later tonight, so you still have a few hours. That's Eastern time. What else? Next week we will be introducing React.js, and so the intent is that we learn about the underlying programming language, which is JavaScript. I'll learn the syntax, all the capabilities that the language gives us, and then how that is then going to be the foundation for understanding React.js. React.js is like jQuery, it's a layer of abstraction on top of the browser. But where jQuery is a very thin layer, React.js is a very thick layer, right? So it's a lot of really cool abstractions that let us think about web pages and web applications in terms of components that can be reused, reusable, self-contained components. So that's next week. I think that's it. Any questions before we get started? All right, let's get going. Let's see. So yeah, let's talk about jQuery real quick. So jQuery is a library. It's a JavaScript library, meaning it's entirely written in JavaScript. Okay, it's not another language or anything. It is JavaScript. But what it does is that it addresses an issue that uh, surfaced at the turn of the century, when the big corporations had realized the importance of browsers. They all rushed to compete in this space, right? This market, and also looking how to, certainly provide the minimum specification and requirements that all browsers um, should provide, but then see how they could differentiate between themselves, right? And unfortunately, one particular way that they differentiated themselves was that they fractured the JavaScript language into multiple different versions that were slightly different. If you're running on this particular browser, this particular version, you had this particular language features, right? But if you were in a different browser, a different vendor, different version, then you didn't have the same features. And so that created a problem for us developers, and which jQuery fixed, right? jQuery uh, created a thin layer of abstraction, right? That allowed developers to write to this intermediate layer, right? Instead of writing directly to the browser. We've been using, up to this point, all the examples that we've gone through so far have been using the bare bones JavaScript browser API, right? And jQuery is written in terms of those low-level APIs, but they publish their own API that allows you to think about the browser at a higher level. So let's take a look at the examples first. Let's install jQuery. So it can be installed a couple of ways. You can download jQuery from jQuery.com. So if you go to jQuery.com, you can download. So you go to download jQuery, and you have a couple of versions. You have a compressed, production-ready jQuery 3.6.1. You could certainly do that, and copy it into your project. The other way is through a CDN. Downloading, is it here? CDNs? They don't have the core API. Let's look it up. So this is jQuery CDN. So at jQuery.com, they provide the links that you can then link into your document, right? So we could do a minified version. This one, not the uncompressed, the minified, right? So if you copy this the script, see that the script, the source, it links to their website, right? code.jQuery.com. So you're downloading the library directly from their servers, as opposed to putting it on your servers. They have it on their servers, right? And they guarantee that these servers are going to be up, 24/7, much better quality and speed than our own servers, right? So their servers are much reliable than our own servers. So it's a good idea to link it to their servers, right? So let's do that. It's going to copy that, and let's bring it over to the exercises that we had been working so far in our assignment. So let me close a few things here. Please, so let's close that. Let's close this, and let's just keep this one right here. So let's close all others, all tabs, and probably just keep the index index.js. There it is for A5. Okay. So in A5, what we're going to do, let's run. Okay, so this is where we left off yesterday, the other day. So what we're going to do is that we're going to paste that source at the top right here. Okay, or actually, I did say that we would put it down at the last right here. Okay, yeah. So let's load it right there, and we can break up this into individual lines so that we can read it better. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So now this basically installs the jQuery library, and then from your own index.js, you can start playing around with a few things. Okay. So we had already created our index.js, right? That currently is doing this content, right? The grades, the arrays. You remember that, right? So let's we can create a div where we can do all our work for jQuery. So let's say ID jQuery examples. Okay, right now it's empty. Maybe we can put an H2 and call it jQuery examples, or maybe put it out here. Okay, which is empty. We haven't done anything yet. Okay, and maybe give it a color so that we know that this is the jQuery examples. Maybe do a background color, and maybe maybe a light blue. Right now it's empty. There's nothing in it. Right, we haven't done anything. But let's play around with a couple things. Okay. So one of the things that you could do is like you do with any library, with any API, what we want to be able to do is manipulate this content, right? So for instance, let's put here an H3, right? And let's say, hello, uh, hello there, okay? And let's give this an ID, and let's call this hello, okay? And so what we could do is with what we so let's leave this index all by itself. Let's create another JavaScript file where we can work our jQuery examples. So let's go and say jQuery examples. Okay, and from our HTML, let's load it. We're going to load it right here. Notice that I am loading it at the bottom, right? Making sure that the rest of the elements, right, have been loaded already. So all this is in the DOM already. So my jQuery JavaScript here is going to be able to see everything that has been loaded already into the DOM, right? So let's see, we have jQuery here. And so let's see, what can we do? Well, we already know how to grab using a document and finding something by its ID, right? So for instance, we can grab this H3 with the ID hello. Right? We already know how to do that using plain old JavaScript, right? We can say grab by hello, right? We know how to do that, and const hello, and then we know how to maybe change its color, right? We can say hello dot style dot color equal red. Okay, there it is. Hello there. Okay, so we already know how to do that using plain JavaScript. Okay, so what jQuery introduces is a different way of doing this, right? A much more compact, more terse, more productive way of doing it. Okay, so what they do is it says, okay, well, Basically, what you want to be able to do is refer to things in the document. Basically, right? You want to pick out different things in the document, and then you want to transform that content. Correct? I mean, that's what you want to accomplish, right? So, so instead of using all these APIs of retrieving something with ID or class or whatever, right? There's already a technology that does that, right? It no, so for instance, the CSS, as we've seen in prior examples, already has a language that allows you to refer to things in the document, right? It has rules and whatnot that allow you to pinpoint which piece of element you want in the document, right? So that's the first insight that jQuery uses. Right? It says, there already is a very well-defined way that I can refer to different elements in the document, right? So, for instance, one way that we can refer to this hello, right? Wouldn't it be cool that we could use maybe something like star hello? I mean hash hello. That's how you would use in CSS, right? That's how you would refer to it in CSS. So jQuery takes as argument a CSS expression, okay, as an argument, okay? And then it returns to you the actual element that is that it found in the document, right? It applies this CSS, right, that allows you to unequivocally pinpoint exactly what you want to grab or in the DOM, right? And then it returns to you like this, right, using this function, right? This global function called jQuery. This jQuery function is defined by the library that we're loading. So this library declares one function, a global function called jQuery, and now we can call it, right? And we can say, and now that we have hello2, it provides us with an easier way to do this, right? An easier way to do this. Instead of using the low level API, right, that allows us to interact with the DOM using dot style, dot color, and then you assign the color to that, right? It provides a much nicer API, right? It says, so it's okay. So what do you want to do, right? So we already have a mechanism, right, that allows us to style things, right? Basically, being able to have something like this, right, where you provide name value, name value, name value, name value, providing the different attributes that you want to apply, all the different CSS attributes that you want to apply, right? If you want to style things, if you want to style something, right? So as a function, so this hello2 is not the same as this hello. So this hello is a low-level DOM object, right, that is picked directly from the DOM, whereas hello2 is a wrapper around that hello. So hello2 contains hello, okay, but it wraps it around a nice little API so that instead of having to use this low-level API, right, you have things such as .css, right, a function that is not inside of hello. But CSS, you can provide function calls to CSS that will eventually do this, set the color to red, right? So for instance, what you could do is you can say, provide a color attribute, right? And then the value, blue, okay? And these are inspired by these CSS, right? It's what you would normally do. You would say color something, right? You would say, I don't know, color, and then red, right? Okay, so this is inspired on that. Okay, you're providing a CSS attribute color, and you wanted the value to be blue. Okay, Now this under the covers will do this dot style dot color equal blue, right? Um, okay, but right there's a wrapper because it might be that uh, you do it this way in Safari, you do it in some other way under IE, you do it slightly different under Chrome, right? And so what jQuery does is that, hey, instead of you having to remember how to do it in different browsers, I'm just going to give you this consistent API, and I'll figure out, exactly what to do it underneath, right? Now, it is not true that Safari and Chrome do it differently. The style, that color, that's pretty standard. Okay, it's some of the more kind of edge case features of browsers that are not consistently supported across the browsers. Question on the chat. How do we set multiple CSS attributes? Yeah, so you can provide an object instead. All right, and then say colon. You can say colon, and then you can provide several of these, and then comma background. So background, I think background color. I think it's BG color. I forget BG color. Yellow. Okay, so you can provide like this if you have several. So now if I refresh, I don't. Okay. So it's not BG color. Is it background color? I forget. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So these are the exact same CSS attributes that you would use in CSS. Okay, so you can programmatically set the CSS attributes, right, using a JSON object. Okay, that makes sense, right? The other thing that jQuery does is that it allows you to use an alias. So instead of jQuery, there's a $sign that is an alias to jQuery. So this would apply to the same exact thing, right? So $sign is an alias to the jQuery function. It also allows you to tie things together, where if you have hello.css, you can just string these together. Right? So you say .hello and then .css, right? So this returns obviously hello too. So for instance, if you don't really need hello to, right, you can just say, $sign hello .css, blah blah blah, right? Okay. All right, everybody good? All right. Okay, so you can manipulate content that way. All right, so let's take a look at the slides. Okay, so here it is. You load it, and the syntax is that it takes a CSS selector as argument, the jQuery or the $sign, and then the action that you want to do. This action could be .css. You can do there's tons and tons of actions that you can learn. For instance, something else that you can do is say say you assign this hello to. You can say hello to, right? And you can change the content by saying HTML, right? And here you would know how to do it. You can say hello dot inner HTML, right? And you can say equal. Let's see. This says hello there, right? So with this inner HTML, you can say you can change it to hello there, how are you? Question mark. Right. So if you refresh, right? Hello there, how are you? Okay. In jQuery, you can use it now. This .html. .html allows you to pass it as an argument what it is that you want to send it to. Question in the chat. Let's see. Sometimes I see double quotes and sometimes is it different? No, single quotes and double quotes are interchangeable. as long as you're consistent. Industry seems to prefer single quotes instead of double quotes. I prefer double quotes, but the industry prefers single quotes. So you'll see me using them interchangeably. The ones that do matter as being different is the backticks, right? So those behave differently. Those allow you to embed expressions inside, not in single quotes or double quotes, right? Now you can't put single quotes inside of double quotes or vice versa. So you can put single quotes in double quotes or double quotes inside of single quotes, right? And even the whole thing inside of ticks, backticks. So you can put single quotes inside of double quotes inside of ticks. But yeah, no, I'm going to try to stick to single quotes since that's the industry standard. Okay, so here you can say, hello there, how are you? Right? And then you can say, well, here I want to escape the single quotes. I'm fine. How are you? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do the same thing. Yeah, hello there. Hey, how are you doing? Right. So it's the same question, but I'm replacing it. So instead of saying hello there, how are you? I'm replacing how are you doing? Right. So if I refresh, notice that indeed I am modifying the content using jQuery. See that? Okay. Also, since I'm using the same hello to and hello to, I can string these together. I can string that together, and that still works the same way. And oftentimes, if you have several transformations, you can put them in separate lines, so that makes it easier to read. All right, so maybe like that. There we go. So put them in separate lines so that you see that you're doing CSS manipulation, then some HTML, blah blah blah. Right? Okay. Everybody good? All right. And if you're not doing anything with hello to, you can just remove it. There we go. All right. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's maybe put this on the side. Put this here on the left, and maybe this here on the right. A little smaller and a little bigger. Okay. Okay, so let's keep going with the slides. Let's see. Okay. All right, so we saw .css. You can hide content, right? We'll do that in a minute. You can retrieve the value of an input field. We'll do it later. Function initialization. So this you should not care if you have in your HTML, you put in your code at the end of the body. Now, say I put this my URL, my file that has my code, I put it up here where it should be, right? Before the DOM, this would fail. And so if I refresh, notice that it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, okay? And we'll actually get errors in the console saying that the console saying that cannot find blah blah blah, null, yada yada yada, right? So what jQuery allows you to do is says, okay, well, if I really need to be up here, if I really need to live up here, I don't want to do anything until I know that the document has completed loading, right? So what I can do is tell the browser, hey browser, when you're done loading the entire document, tell me so that I can do what I'm supposed to do, okay? So instead of me doing everything right at once, right, I can wait, and you just let me know, right? So for instance, to allow for that, this code it shouldn't run until we know that the document has complete loading. So what jQuery allows you to do is declare a kind of like initializer, like a function, say function main, right? It doesn't matter the name, right? This could be called whatever you want. So XYZ doesn't matter. So the name doesn't matter, right? And but then now your code, right, would go in this function. Go in that function, and then you would say, "Hey, browser, I want you to call this function, which is my code, once you are done loading." Right? And so you could do it two ways. Right? The easiest way is to just say, jQuery, right, and pass it, right, the XYZ function, So what this does is that it tells jQuery, if I pass you a function, it's meant to be called when you know that the document has finalized loading, when you're done loading, right? And so, in fact, if we do that now, this should work again. So refresh, and it did not. What? Function XYZ jQuery. Oh, because jQuery is not loaded yet. jQuery is not loaded yet. Yeah, so we need to be consistent. We need to be consistent. This has to be certainly needs to be invoked after the jQuery library. So let's move the library also up here, where it's supposed to be. Okay. Then this should work. Refresh. There it is. Yeah. Hey, how are you? Okay. So it works the same way as before. Or obviously just $sign. $sign, that would work as well. Now, instead of using XYZ, a common name for doing this, a common name for doing this is that you make it so that instead of XYZ, it's either init, rid, or main, or one of these names, right? So I'm going to call it init. So I'm going to replace all init, and then I run. Okay. All right. So yeah. So that's that. Everybody good? Now, but you don't need the init function. You don't need the init function if you declare everything right at the bottom, right? So that the body has already loaded. All right. All right. So let's keep going. All right. So click events. So how do we handle click events? So in regular JavaScript, the way you do that is by providing an on-click, right? So for instance, you can make anything clickable, right? You can say you have a paragraph, and you say click me, and this ID is click me, right? So anything's clickable, and you could say on click, and then here you could put any function, right? And so you could say in the jQuery examples, you could say const click me is document dot get element by ID, and the ID is click me, right? Actually, we don't need to even do that, right? We could just say we can declare a function here. Actually, is it not gonna? All right, yeah, so it's function click me. That will be invoked, saying alert, thanks for clicking me. Okay. So here on click, we're gonna call the click me function like that, right? So if we go back here and refresh, here's my click me paragraph. If I click on it, notice that the alert box comes up. Thanks for clicking me. So the way you do that in jQuery instead, right? Let's declare here a another another paragraph. It could be anything. It doesn't need to be a paragraph. It could be a label or something, right? Label, ID, click me to. Click me to, please. So we have this paragraph down below. So the way you do that in jQuery is different, right? So you do not use the onClick, right? But that's actually what jQuery ends up doing. jQuery ends up adding that onClick for you, right? But a nicer syntax within jQuery is that you can grab this. You can say grab that element, right, using CSS, right, and then assign a click event. Click event. And here's where you can specify the function to be invoked, right? You can specify it right here. Right? You can say, function, and this says, you can say it's alert. Thanks for clicking me to. All right. So for instance, if I refresh, right, and I click this, it pops up, thanks for clicking me to. See that? Now this could be implemented as a separate function outside, right, and has a name, right? So this would be click me to, right? And here you can provide just the function, to be invoked, right? So this works just the same. Okay, everybody good? Okay. So one of the things that allows you to do here is that as you interact with the event handlers, you can have the event handlers actually manipulate the rest of the document, right? It's like, for instance, we're going to do for creating a small little to-do list, right? That's going to allow you to add new elements to the add new elements or remove elements or delete and edit, things like that. Okay. So event handlers. Let's see. So here's an example on playing around with being able to hide a few things. So for instance, if you have a couple of H1s, right? So for instance, here's a couple of H1s, and which define two H1s and two buttons, right? So here they are. Hide me too, and the two buttons, which right now they don't do anything. They don't do anything, but they have their IDs. Yes. So in jQuery, what we could do is grab those buttons, and where are they? Click to hide. So click to hide, and if we click, what we're going to do here, we can use the function. We can declare the function right here. What do we want to do? All right, here's a function. Okay, and we want to hide what? We want to hide maybe this one, hide me. Okay. So this gets invoked. So what are we doing here? We want to grab this ID. So we're going to grab that ID. It's called hide me. Hide me. Now, if you had the low-level implementation of JavaScript, you would say something like hello.style that display equal none to hide something, right? Now in jQuery, you just have once you have the element, you just have a function called hide, right? And it would hide it. Right? So let's try that. Click on it, and if I click on it, notice that it hides. Right, the hide me, it's gone. See, it's gone. Right. Or you can have another function. Maybe click to show. How about? click to show. Click to hide. So this is click to show. And so let's create another event handler. We say that if you click on click to show, if you click on it, the function that we want to do, we're going to create a function, little function that grabs the same element, hide me, and it, instead of saying display dot equal block, you call the function show. So one hides it, one shows it. Okay. So let's see. Let's refresh. And if you click it, it's gone, and this shows it, and this hides it. Okay, see that? All right. There's also mouse events. As the mouse comes in, you can listen for those kinds of events, right? Keyboard, as you type, you can also listen to those event handlers. Toggle kind of does the same thing. It combines these two. Like that, for instance, you have a separate button. You have another button, right? They can say toggle. Click to toggle. Click to toggle. That kind of combines both of them, right? So you can say, let's grab this. And you can say that if you click, click to toggle, the hide me is going to toggle it. Say toggle, meaning that if it's showing, it'll hide it, and if it's hidden, it'll show it. Right. So here's click to toggle. If I click on it, it's going to hide this. So it hides it. If I click it again, it shows it, which is nice, pretty cool if you want to create like, long contents that you want to hide and show, by maybe toggling some icon, right? If you have lots of like an accordion, right, that you can show different sections and you can hide them and collapse them, right? So you can do that. There's mouse up, mouse down, there's keyboard, there's animation. I'm not going to get into animations. You can do some really cool animations, rotations and transformations and whatnot. There's timers. I'm not going to get into timers. Chaining, you can put together multiple functions, like one in each row. You also read input fields that where you can read the contents, right? So let's do that. All right, so let's take a look at implementing a really, really simple to-do list. So before we do a to-do list, I'd like to show you something, right? Say you have here in the HTML, perhaps maybe a little list, right? So actually, let's put it at the top so that you can see it. So you put a little UL, and at first it's empty. Okay, so for instance, this I'm gonna call it this. It's called my to-do list. Oh, I did mention that single quotes is the standard. Not so for attributes. In attributes, the standard is to use double quotes, right? Although you can use single quotes, right? But the standard is that for attributes we use double quotes. Okay. So let's see this this little UL here with ID equal to do. All right. So not only can you read content from HTML, like retrieve values from HTML, you can also write to the document. Just like you could use document.write. Okay. But that's a very low level thing to do. Let me show you something much more powerful. So first, let's grab the to-do. Right. Notice that if I say, notice that the to-do is not showing anything. All right. I guess let me grab a few things. Maybe we can do a couple LIs. Right. To do, buy milk. Let's just put a few things here. Buy milk, pick up kids. So let's see. So here they are. There's the list. Maybe we could put an H3 here to do. There it is. So how can we programmatically add to this? All right. So for instance, you could one way that you could do it is that you can grab the element, the to-do UL. You can grab it. So let's do that. Let's const to-do list. Say $ and grab to do. Okay. And so now this to do is referencing this DOM element right here. Okay. Well, you can add content to it, right, dynamically. You can say, create a brand new element, an LI, and call it by mail, walk dogs, right? And so you can create a brand new line element on the fly programmatically that says walk dogs. Okay. And once you have it, you would like to be able to somehow inject it in here, right? So there's a function that allows you to append. You can grab the element, the parent element, and then you can append the child element, walk dogs. Right, so I can reference, there it is, walk dogs. See that? It dynamically added it, right? And then let's create just a few more walk dogs. Make dinner. So make dinner. Okay, and then you can append make dinner. Okay, refresh. You can also prepend, right? Like put it maybe at the top of the list. Maybe at the very beginning you have to get out of bed. Get out of bed. That's the very first thing you need to do, right? Or maybe make breakfast. Make breakfast. So make breakfast. And maybe instead of a UL, this is like an ordered list, right? So they follow a particular order, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So make breakfast, and so now we can append, or we can prepend, put it at the top. Say to-do list prepend, right? Make breakfast. So that's going to put it at the top of the list. There it is. So it's up to the top of the list. So you can add at the bottom, or you can add at the top, right? You can even put it anywhere in the list. You can there's other functions that allow you to put it exactly where you want it, but I'm not going to get into that. I mean, this just there's so many of these functions that allow you to manipulate the DOM any which way you want. Okay, or you could have maybe just a list, right? You could say const, to do items. It's an array, right? And maybe you have all sorts of things that you need to do. Make dinner, take a shower, after work or whatever, and then watch a movie, and then go to bed. Okay. So for instance, you can iterate over this. You can say, to do item dot. There's a loop. You can say for, or there's also a for each, right? Which is a nicer way to iterate things, right? So this is an item, right? And this is and for each one of them, we want to do create a new item, right? Const new item, new to do item is a $ li, and maybe this is an expression. So li together with the item, right? And close the line item. Once you have the to-do item, you can append. You can say to-do list dot append, right? The new to-do item. Okay. So let's see. We can refresh, and there they are, right? Take shower, blah blah blah. Go to bed. Everybody good? Okay. Yeah. So we could use this, this mechanism to maybe generate the items, walk dogs as just a, a list here, and make dinner, right? And make breakfast as the first one, right? Where if we do that, then we don't really need any of these, right? We can obviate that, and you kind of get the same. Oh, why is it not in the right order? Oh, because we have a couple of these. Yeah, so let's comment those out. There they are. Okay. So if that's true, right? What we could do is maybe have this as a function that we can call to render, right? So maybe we could create a function here that has this, right? We can grab this and maybe put it here in a function that says, the function is const render to-dos, right? And then does that, right? And maybe the render to-dos is you pass it the array of to-dos, right? To-do items. And so maybe this is the to-dos, and you pass it, say to-dos. So here we maybe call something like render to-dos, and we pass this to-do list. Oh wait, no, to-do list, no, to-do items. We pass it the array to-do items. Okay. And so if we refresh, it didn't work. What? Wait, what? Oh, okay. No, sorry. We do need this, right? Okay, so where do we do that? Where do we do that? Um, let's see. Okay, no, because to-do list needs that, right? So probably our function needs to live in here, right? Needs to live in here, and probably our little to-do list needs to live here in the function, right? Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Okay, excellent. All right. Yeah. So that's render to-do items. But how about we want to be able to add new elements to the to-do list, right? So maybe we have an input field here, right? We say input, and the ID is new to do, right? And we have a placeholder to do, right? Where we can type that in, and maybe we have a button that says add, and the ID is add to do. So we have that. Okay. So what we want to be able to do is when we click on the function, when we click on the button, right? We want to grab that button. And the button is called add to do. When we click on it, we want to call the function add to do, right? So some function that says add to do, right? And for right now, we can say alert, add to do. So we're going to call add to do. Oop, add to do. There it is. Without the parentheses. Careful, don't do this. right? Because if not, it's going to call it right away. Okay, and it might get into an infinite loop. So careful. So no parentheses there. So let's see. If we refresh and we say add, there it is, add to do. So what do we want to do in the add to do? Well, we would want to read the input field that whatever's typed in there, and then append to the array. Maybe we can append the array, and then we can then remove, re-render the whole to do. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to grab, let's remove the alert, right? So we're going to grab the input field, this input field. We want to grab the value. So it says we're going to grab the input field. I have and I'm going to grab its value. It's slightly different than the way you do in JavaScript. In JavaScript, you'd say you grab the element and it says dot value. Here, there's a function called val, which reads the content of the input field, right? So this is cons. This is the to-do text, all right? And maybe we can do an alert, the to-do text. Let's see if it works. All right, so we grab something, say grab add. Notice that indeed we have the value right there. Perfect. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to append that to the array. We can say to do items dot push. This puts it at the bottom of the array, and then we can say the to do text. Okay, and once we add it to the array, we can call render to dos again. Render to dos again. And so let's refresh. Let's see. Go to bed, sleep, add, and oops, something's wrong. To do items, render to dos. Oh, we have to pass the array. To do items. Refresh. So let's say sleep. Click on add. It didn't quite work. Okay, so what it did is it did add sleep, but what it did is that it re-rendered the whole thing again at the bottom, right? So basically what it did is it had in the previous render to-dos, it had already added the 6 elements, right? 6 elements. And now it just keeps adding to it. So probably what we need to do is first empty it out, empty the list if it's already full, and then render it, right? So let's do that. So we can do to-do list. There is a function to empty, right? Which says if there's anything in this element, any children below it, just blow them away, right? And then you can append. So let's try and do that. So let's refresh, and this would be to do sleep, and there it is. So it adds to the bottom, right? And I can just keep adding as many as I want. Okay. So yeah, how about being able to remove a to-do, right? So for instance, be nice, right? If here in my line item, I wouldn't just have text, right? I would have maybe a button, right? That says that I can delete, or maybe like an X, right? So these render. So it'd be some kind of X that I can click, right? So yeah, so I want to be able to click on these buttons, but it's gonna be like, I don't know, there's gonna be a whole bunch of buttons that I can click. Was it a question in the chat? No. I heard. Just a minute. Is somebody texting me? No, I don't see it. Okay. So I want to be able to click on one of them. So how do I do that? So I need to be able to assign a click, right, to all these buttons, no matter how many buttons there are, and even buttons that are not there yet, right? Because notice that all these .click assume, right, that this element here already exists. It's already in the DOM. But these buttons, because every time I'm going to add a new one, right? If I keep adding, right, all these buttons that I'm adding later, they don't exist. So how do I add them, but then assign them a click event? How do I do that? Okay. So one thing that we can do is first assign something we can grab onto, right? Something we can grab onto, right? So what we're going to do is that we're going to give them all the same class, so that we can, they all share this class, right? So that we can say, well, if any of them of this class is clicked, then we can do something, right? So I'm going to call this delete, right? So I call this delete. And what we're going to do is these click, what we're going to do is that we're going to say, if you click on anything that has that class, then I will be notified. Right? So how do we do that? So there's one way of doing that. We can say on, right? Wait, let me see. I forget the exact syntax. So jQuery on. So this is the generic event handler that allows you to specify what you want to click on, right? So let's see, there's an example down here. Yeah, so right here. So you can say $, what is it you want to click on, right? And what event do you want to listen to? Okay. Now the thing is that this also assumes that this element is already there, right? So one thing you could do is that, hey, I don't know where the element actually is yet, but I know its parent that already exists. Right. So for instance, we know that all these ULs, all these LIs are children to this specific UL, right? And then you can specify, well, under there is an element that I want you to listen for a click, right? So let's do that. I'm going to say on. I'm going to grab the UL, which is this to-do list. It's a to-do list, right? We're going to grab it to do, which is I'm just going to grab that to do. I'm going to say on. So any clicks inside of that to do, right? So anywhere I click here, so if I click anywhere here, which is the entire UL, I'm going to be notified. If there's a click in there, if there's a click, but I don't want, I want to be a little more specific. I don't want just the entire to do. I want you to filter it by elements that are inside, right? So I want to filter it by, for instance, things that have a particular class, delete, right, that have a particular class in there. And once that happens, I want you to call a function, right? And then we specify what the function is. The last argument is the function. Okay. Right. All right. Let's try it out. Let's say, alert, deleting. Okay. So let's try it out. Okay. So let's click on. Notice that if I click here, it doesn't work. But if I click on the X, notice that it comes up. See that? Right. So here, right, I'm clicking in the UL. Right. This is inside the UL. but only the element that has the delete class actually causes the function to be invoked. Okay. Now I need to figure out, right? Now I need to figure out which one did you click? So I know you clicked on a button that has a delete class, but which one is it? The first one, the second one, the third one? Which one is it? Okay. So there's a few ways of doing it. One way of doing it is that I can encode enough information in the button that kind of tells me which one it is, right? So what I could do here is that for each, not only do I have the item, but I also have the index. I also have the index, 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So I could create here an ID that has that unique identifier, right? You could say the index, okay, right? And then once I have the button, right? So how do I grab the button? So one thing that gets passed as part of this event handler in the argument, we get passed an event. So let's take a look at the event, that represents who generated this event, which actual item in the DOM element generated this event, right? It's an event object. In here, you have all sorts of things. You have, the exact mouse position when you clicked on it. You have a timestamp, exactly when it happened, right? Plus, you have the actual element that generates this event, right? So let's take a look at, let's do a console to see what's in there. We say console.log, the event, right? So let's do that. Let's render. So notice that if I take a look at the walk dogs or this X, right, and inspect it, notice that the element, see that it says ID1, see that, and this one has ID0, right? They all have unique identifiers. See that 1, this one has 2, see that? Okay. Now if I click on it, let's go to the console because we're going to display it in the console. Let's empty this and let's click on this. Click. All right, so it's a huge object. Let's open it up. It has, look at that, it has current target. See that? If I hover over it, notice that it highlights that button. See that? If I click on it, that is the button that was clicked. It's a button element who has an ID of 3 and a class of delete on it. See that? It's got also the type of event. It's got a timestamp, right? It's got the target. So I could grab the target, right, and ask it, hey, what's your ID? What's your ID? So let's do that. Let's say, we're going to say const target is event dot target, right? So let's display the target. Display the target. So let's refresh this. And so let's click on this. There it is, the actual button that was clicked, the button whose ID is 2, class delete. If I click on this one, it'll be button number 5, ID 5, delete, right? And this is the raw element, right? This is the raw DOM element, right? So this is not a jQuery wrap around that button, right? This is the actual raw object, right? So to convert it back into a wrapped jQuery object, because it has nice API, right? We could use the raw object, right? And then go back and we would have to use the legacy JavaScript API, right, to interact with it. But the jQuery API is so much nicer, right? So I'm gonna wrap this whole thing, this object that came back, this raw object, I'm gonna wrap it with jQuery so that I can now use the nicer APIs, right? So for instance, one of the things that you could do is that you can grab an attribute. You can say target dot attribute. It says, I know you have an attribute in there, I know you have an attribute called ID and class and all those things. So grab me the value of the attribute called ID. Okay, and boom, we got the ID here. So now we can display the ID. Let's do that. Let's refresh. Okay, so now if I click on this, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. So now we have the index. We have the index of the element that you want to remove. So what we could do is splice that element out of the array, right? And then just re-render the array, right? So let's do that. Let's splice out. I'm going to say the to-do items. You can do a splice. So splice allows you to add content and remove content, right? You have to tell me what position you want to splice out. So which one is it? It's the ID. Okay. So let's rename this as index and index. Okay. And then you can tell me how many elements do you want to remove? I want to remove just one. Once we remove the element from the array, we can just re-render it. You can say render to-dos and then to-do items. Okay, so let's refresh that. And now we can remove 3. See that? We can remove make breakfast. I'm not gonna watch a movie. It also works with new things, right? Go to bed, dream, and then wake up again. Okay, and do it again, and do it all over again, Okay. So even with new items that I add, right? So for instance, dream and wake up, right? So this works with items that were already there initially, plus any items that I add in the future. That makes sense? All right. Okay. So anyway, the assignment asks you to use these techniques, right, to create a to-do list on your own. Well, not actually, it walks you through the whole thing. All right. Okay. So let me see. Okay.
Rob, can you go over the splice function again?
Yeah, you can actually look at the documentation. The splice works for both adding new content or removing content, right? So, for instance, you can add content, like for instance, if you have an array of fruits, right? You can have, if you have more than 2 arguments, then it's interpreted as an add, right? You say that I want to starting at position 2. Yeah, starting at position 2. 0 means I'm not removing anything. I'm adding the 2 elements. So this would be, banana, orange, apple, lemon, kiwi, and then mango, right? But if you only have 2 arguments, then this is starting at position 2. I want to remove this many, right? So starting at 0, 1, 2, I want to remove apple and mango. Okay, you can use it to add or remove. So adds or removes array elements in the array. Okay. So we use it only for removing. Okay. Push just always adds at the bottom. Okay. Yeah. So let me make sure that I covered. I just want to make sure it's the JavaScript assignment. Okay, in the JavaScript assignment, it asks you to do the following. To implement in the Twitter section, right? It asks you to break up the application into multiple pieces, right? And I believe it's the what is that you're working on? Wait a Twitter. Okay. Yeah. So working on the Explore screen, right? So you built this in the previous assignment, but using, Bootstrap and using rows and columns and whatnot, right? So what it asks you to do is the following, right? So for instance, let's create here in Twitter, right? This Explore right now is hard coded, right? So it's hard coded. Let's see what the content looks like. Run. Okay, so we have the left-hand side, right? We have the center, right? And we have the who to follow on the right. Okay, so we want to create components out of this, right? So let's break this up. So let's first bring in jQuery. Let's bring in jQuery, which we don't have. Right, so let's bring in jQuery. So this is let me copy it from my index. And so let's bring that in like that. And we'll add an index here. So let's see, JavaScript index. Oops. New JavaScript index. Like that, right? So in here you'll have probably a function init, right? That you'll say $init, like that. Okay. Now we need to load this index file. So we'll say script source and then index. There it is. Okay. All right. All right. So see here we have multiple pieces. So instead of rendering here this content like this, what we're going to do is the following. Say we're going to put a div here. I'm going to say ID, and I'm not sure what the assignment exactly tells you, but I'm just going to make it up here just to make the point, right? That you have a placeholder where we want to render all of this dynamically. Okay, right? So how do we do that? Well, let's do that. So in index, what we're going to do is that we're going to grab that ID. All right, we're going to do the ID. We're going to say $9 explore, and we're going to append. What is it that we're appending here? We're going to say append what? Well, that entire text. We can dynamically inject it. You can say, let's grab this whole thing. We can grab this whole thing. Remove it, and then just add it here. Right? And if we go back and refresh, this should look exactly the same thing. Nothing has changed as far as the application is concerned. Right? Before it was hard-coded, and the text was in the HTML document. Now, instead, we are creating one big JSON, a JavaScript object, right, and injecting it dynamically in there. Correct? Right? But now, instead of having everything in one single document, we could start breaking this up. Right? So, for instance, the left-hand side, this left-hand side, it's like the explore. It's the navigation, right? It's the navigation. So we could create a JavaScript called navigation. You create a function called navigation, or even here, right? We can create a function. Now let's put it in a separate file. Say new, and you can say JavaScript. This would be maybe navigation JavaScript. Okay. And it's a function called navigation that returns what? Well, it could return this whole thing, right? This list group, this button, right? All of this, right? Everything that lives right here inside of this one column here, right? So let's make that a little smaller, right? And we can, so it goes all the way up to, let's see, this here, right? So let's cut it out of here, cut it, right? And we can put it here, right? Like that. Maybe fix up the tabbing a little bit, like that. So now instead of having this like that, we can now call that function, and it's called what's it called? Navigation. We can call that function navigation parentheses. Now we can't call it just yet because this JavaScript, we haven't loaded it into the index. All right, so let's load that here. Right, so this will be script source navigation JavaScript, like that. Notice that it needs to be declared. It needs to be declared before the index, because right, we're going to be the index file. It needs to be able to call navigation, so it needs to be declared first, right, and then here, right? Okay. So let's refresh. Okay, notice that it's still working, right? Okay. Just to make sure, let's we can create another one just to make sure that this is actually working. So this is Twitter. Let's refresh. Yeah, there it is, Twitter. See that? So yeah, so we were able to break it up into, instead of having one huge file, now into smaller components, right, that can be configured or reused, right, elsewhere. Right. So let's keep doing this. Same thing we can do with the main content here, right? Let's see, the position relative. You have a UL here. So let's grab all this, right, and put it in another file. Maybe call it, I don't know, main content JavaScript, and this returns. And I'll use the new. Well, no, let's do this function main content function, which is going to return what? It's going to return this whole thing here. Cut that out. Put that in there, right? And maybe fixed up the tabbing a little bit. Okay, and then we have to declare it in here. So we have to declare a script source main content, and then from within my index, I can now call, right, main content. Right. So if I refresh, notice that this works just the same. Same thing with who to follow, and I'm not going to do the rest. Right. You understand what's going on, right? Okay. Now this main content, notice that I can see some patterns here, right? We have the input fields at the top, we have the cog. Now this UL, what is this UL? So this UL looks like it's a list of things. No, it's a list of things. So this could be some data type, right? This could be an array that I can generate dynamically, right? So for you, trending, blah blah blah. So these looks like these are tweets, right? These are tweets. So this could be maybe an array up here, const tweets, of objects where you have each one has a tweet, right? The actual text, and the text is oops, for you, right, for you, and then a whole bunch of these, right? So this for you. There's what? There's trending, news, sport. Oh no, wait, these are the tabs. These are the tabs. I'm sorry. It's these down here, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. What is this? This is the title. This is the title. This is the time or the topic, right? What is this? This is the actual tweet, right? Yeah. Sorry. There we go. So this is the title. So this is something like the title. What else we have? We have the topic. This is the topic. This is the how long ago was it? This is the actual tweet, right? So let's grab that. So this is the title. The topic is React.js, right? The actual tweet, right? And let's see, right? And we don't need that end of line. And you can have any number of these, right? You can have one of those. Let's create a couple more. So this is title, SpaceX, lands on Mars, something, right? And the topic is space, and says, Starship lands on Mars and picks up Curiosity rover, right? And I don't know, Tesla bot stole my job, and this is an economy or something, or economy. Tesla bot is stealing all our jobs. Okay, so we have a couple of tweets, and so now, right, this here, right, this UL, this would be now what? Instead of having these LIs down here, this would be kind of like a template, right? This is a template. I want to render this for every tweet, right? So let's do that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say this is going to be an expression. And this is going to be an expression that I'm going to map over the tweets. And for each tweet, I want to render what? I want to render, I'll put this in parentheses, right? I want to render one of these LIs, right? And maybe tap this a little bit. And now this is what? That's the title. That's the tweet dot, tweets, no, tweet. This is tweet dot title. This is the tweet topic, right? And this is the tweet, actual tweet, right? All right, so let's see how this renders. Let's refresh. There they are. See that? Look at that. React.js, symbol, blah, blah, SpaceX, lands on Mars, Tesla bot stole my job, blah, blah, blah. See that? Look at that. So this is now data driven, right? I can have this as a separate data type that I can load, right? Maybe I could have like in a separate file, right? And maybe have it in another file that says tweet. Oops, sorry, a separate file that says JavaScript tweets maybe, or JavaScript, right? That declares this function, this here. So if I cut that out and I declare that separately, I can in the HTML perhaps load it before I can say script, source tweets that declares that array, declares this array. So by the time it gets to index, and calls main content, it's already declared, right? This array of tweets is already declared, right? So let's see if I broke it. Okay, I didn't break it. Okay. Anyway, the intent is that I'm showing you mechanisms by which you can break up, a large, web page or and dynamically break it up into multiple pieces that then can be collated into a single one, right? And now that it's broken up, you can say, you can now declare certain, break it up into a team and say, hey, you're going to do the main content, you're going to do the, this, that, and the other, you're going to do the, the who the files on the right hand side. Somebody's going to be responsible for a particular tab and whatnot, right? So now you can break it up into multiple components, and each engineer is responsible, right, for each one of the components, right? And they can test it separately, independent from everybody else, right? And they can all work independently, and then, right, it gets collated into a larger screen, right? Okay. Anyway, did that make sense? Let me see the A5, see if I missed something. Oh yeah, so it is suggesting that you override the bootstrap. Right now it's all white, right? And so if you go to Bootswatch, they have a nice little set of free styles that you can download and or link. So I was suggesting maybe take a look at Cyborg. Cyborg has a nice black background and nice setup of colors of buttons and whatnot, right? Nice colors for tables, and there's a few here. Most of them are lots of them are free. Like this one, Lutera, uses rounded buttons. So I mean, you can choose. I suggest, I forget which one I suggest. Cyborg, the Cyborg theme. Right, if you go here, it's this one. Yeah, okay. And going through download, you can download it and grab the theme, their theme, right? As opposed to using the default Bootstrap theme. You can download theirs, right? So let's see. So you can download Cyborg and say download, and there's our Bootstrap min. So what you could do here, you can open this up. You can open the, where the heck did I put it? I think in the download folder. In the download folder, download. There it is. You copy this, and you drop it in your Bootstrap folder, right? So I think it's let's see, vendors, Bootstrap, and CSS, right? If you drop it in here, I remember if so wait, if I say new boot swatch, right, I'm gonna paste it in there. There it is. And then in your index, if you load their CSS after you load Bootstrap, so here's your Bootstrap right there. See that? So after that, you can override their styles. You can say href. I'm going to go down to vendors. I'm going to go to boot swatch, and then I'm going to load the min. See that? Rel style sheet. Right now, if I go back, which should not work. Right, if I refresh, notice that it styles it in dark mode. See that? And everything is nice in contrast. It's the correct color scheme, right? Without breaking anything. You can just override it and it should look just as nice. And you can try others, right? There's Cyborg, there's a few others that are free. Some of them are for, you have to pay for. Don't buy them unless you really like it. There's Quartz, there's this one Morph, which kind of adds these funny looking buttons. There's Quartz that uses this gradient of colors and whatnot. Okay, so just play around with some of them and see if you like them. Some of them are for that you need to pay for. They are pretty cool. So anyway, explore that. What else? Okay, so there it is. The explore screen asks you to do that. Implements the there it is, the div with the container, and then there's an index for that. Oh yeah, I didn't cover modules. So okay, so modules. So this is a script, right? And it says type equal module. So type equal module allows you to do something really, really cool, right? So what it allows you to do is that it allows you to stop having to declare all these files. Right. So here's you have index, right? You have index, and then all these, tweets and main and navigation, and all those, I had to declare them here. See that? But if you instead, let's see if I can, change this real quick. I'm going to comment this out. All right. If I do that, my whole thing is going to break, right? Let's see if I do that. My code breaks. Refresh. Yeah, it broke. Right? It broke. But if I declare this to be modules, type equal module, what I can do now is use a new feature in ES6 that these functions, this navigation, right, is declared elsewhere. It's declared in the navigation.js, yes? But if I go to navigation.js, right, and I say, oops, if I say at the bottom, I say export, right, default, and the function navigation, I can export it. Now in my index, I can import that function. I can say import navigation from navigation. See that? Now navigation is there. Okay, how cool is that? So let's refresh. And it still broke. Let me do for all of them. So main content, same thing. Let me go to main content. I'm going to export. So this is export default main content. Okay, and then from index, I'm going to import main content. So this is import main content. There it is. And anyone else? I think that's it. Oh, I need also the in main content. I need this array, right? This array over here, this tweets. Okay, so that's declared in tweets.js. So I can say export default tweets like that. And in here I can import. I say import tweets from tweets. There we go. Let's see if it's still not working. Let's see the inspect. See what I'm missing. Console. Failed to load a server. Blah 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 blah. 4.4. It can't find main content. Cannot find main content. Interesting. Oh, you know what might happen? I think I need to add these extensions. let's see, Explorer W2 add them. Let's see. .js. .js. Let's see. There it is. Okay, see that? Look at that, right? So now you have the really cool functionality that we kind of take for granted in other languages, where you do import or includes, right? Where each one is its own little module, and not they're not all globals anymore, right? It used to be that all these functions and all these variables were global, right? So anybody can call them. But now you need to explicitly export, so you can then import them. Only things that are exported, then you can import them, right? So the assignment does walk you through that, right? Of declaring things as a exporting, right, each one of these components, and creating the explore screen as three components: the navigation sidebar, the explore component, and the who to follow list, right? I call them differently in the assignment. Here I call this the main content, and the assignment I think calls it the explore component, and this one calls it the navigation sidebar. In my lecture, I called it navigation. Okay, so follow the assignment. Obviously, with the example that I've shown you here. Also, notice that we're using the more modern function declaration, as opposed to using the function calls here, function. So obviously you can declare them like this, right? Const, and then like that. Right? This is totally equivalent. It's just a syntactical difference, right? And this just, excuse me, this would work just the same. Yeah. So navigation sidebar, then and then just walks through, replacing the content with the navigation sidebar function, and then ask you to implement the who to follow list item, right? So this we did not do at all, right? I'll let you do that, and to do that, you're going to declare that in a separate JavaScript file, like who.js. Just like we did here in this example, right? We declared the tweets in a separate JavaScript file like this, and then we exported it, and then somebody imported it. Same thing here. You're going to create an array, right, that declares the who to follow, which in your component you're going to load that, right? You're going to import it just like we imported here tweets. You're going to import the who, right, and then you're going to iterate over it, right, and render each one of them. Okay, and then it goes into a little further, like for instance, as we're so here, right? Look at this, right? Here, this li has images and whatnot. This could be a component itself, right? This could be a component itself. This could be, the tweet component or something, right? So in a separate file, right? In a separate file, where is it? In Twitter, you can call it the tweet component, right? New JavaScript, tweet component, right? And this is, oops, function tweet component. Could be a component that receives as argument tweet, okay, and returns what? Returns this li, this whole li. See that? So I copy that, or I cut it, and it's returned by this. Okay. All right. But we need the tweet object. We need to pass in the tweet object. See that? We need to export it. We need to export default the tweet component. And in here, what do we generate? What are we going to call? The tweet component. And we're going to pass the tweet. There we go. See that? Right. So this allows me to, again, to always think on how can I break this up into smaller pieces, right? So that this this too, right? This could be a tab component, right? This could be the tab component, right? Like the top tab component, so it could be separate. So instead of having to live here, right, and be hard to read, right? Let's see if this renders. If I refresh, oops, it broke. Let's see. Oh, did I import it? Oh, it's missing the .js. Careful there. .js. By default, the IDE leaves out the .js, and that you could do that in a React.js application, but not in a JavaScript, right? So that we'll talk about that next week. So same thing, right? This whole tab here at the top, right? You can have the tab here, say JavaScript called tabs, right? It's a function, tabs, that returns this UL. This UL puts it in here, right? And we export it. And so now this would be tabs. There we go, like that. So this imported it automatically. My IDE imported it automatically. I just need to remember to put the JS. So I rendered. There it is. See, my tabs are rendered there. So now this file becomes much more readable. Right? It's much more understandable what it's doing, right? That you have the input field at the top here. This could be its own component too, right? And I can break it up into multiple components and just rebuild everything. So now all the considerations that you apply in software engineering on how to break up things into multiple pieces and use top-down design and bottom-up design and whatnot, right? And modularity and blah blah blah, all that, are applicable here as well. All right. All right. I think I'm over my time. I'm going to leave it here. Any questions? All right. Yeah. So thank you. See you next week.